Like all sports leagues, the NBA has shaped itself into a league of eras. Since its inception in the mid-20th century, different eras of the league have come to form as the game of basketball itself has evolved into the game known and loved. The game has also been no stranger to great talents. Within each generation of NBA players, therein lies a certain class or group of players that stand above the rest in terms of their game. Those players have gone on to become the superstars of the NBA. The sheer talent and skill level of said players would allow them to transcend above the rest, no matter who is on the court or when they took the court. While each era of the game was different, only a select class of superstars would dominate in any era of the NBA. 13. Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller is one of the greatest shooters the league has ever seen. When he retired in 2005, his 2,563 pointers ranked as the most in history. During his career, he became a part of two exclusive clubs by scoring 25,000 career points and shooting 50-40-90 in 1994. Shooting is a skill that is extremely important in basketball, and that's why Reggie would be great in any era. However, I think he would be less effective in the 60s and 70s because the NBA first adopted the three-point line in the 1979-80 season. Having said this, Reggie's longevity and ability to perform in the clutch simply transcends era. 12. Karl Malone. Karl Malone is one of the game's greatest players, and arguably the greatest power forward in the history of the league. He did not win a championship, but what is undeniable is his place in offense. The Mailman is the third highest scorer in NBA history, with 36,928 total points put up. Malone started out with the Utah Jazz in 1985, becoming a franchise icon and leading them to two finals appearances in 1997 and 1998. He would then play his last two seasons with the Lakers before retiring. Despite being outdone by Michael Jordan and the unstoppable dynasty of the Chicago Bulls in both finals, Malone still etched his name into NBA history by being of the game's most elite scorers. And when a player is a scorer as elite as Malone, there is little doubt that they would dominate in any era of the NBA. 11. Kevin Durant. Despite often being overlooked, Kevin Durant has solidified himself as one of the game's greatest players. 2 months ago, he ranked 9th on the all-time scoring list, and now finds himself at 7th. That figure can only rise if the 35-year-old still has a few years left in the tank. Known for his beanstalk-like stature, the two-time NBA champion and 14-time All-Star has become one of the greatest forwards in the history of the game. Although he relies somewhat heavily on the three-point shot, his numbers would still be high no matter the era. 10. Larry Bird. There are those who think Larry Bird would not be effective in today's NBA because of his general lack of athleticism compared to today's stars. As you could probably guess, I completely disagree with those people. Bird played basketball the way it should be played. It's as simple as that. He was selfless, clutch, and is one of the toughest competitors the game has ever seen. Larry is often praised for his shooting and rebounding skills, but I always thought that the best part of Bird's game was his passing. He was an extremely creative playmaker, and sometimes it seemed like he had eyes in the back of his head. His selfless style of play was completely infectious. Larry was the kind of guy you wanted on your team. He won back-to-back-to-back MVPs in the mid-80s and added 3 championships and 2 NBA Finals MVPs to go along with them. I've always maintained that if Bird played in today's NBA, he'd be terrific. His passing skills, combined with his shooting touch and leadership, would all carry over in the modern game. 9. Magic Johnson. Earvin Magic Johnson transcended the game of basketball in more ways than one. On the court, he was known for his versatile level of play. The 6'9" point guard was able to play all over the court. It was for that reason that he became a primary component of the Showtime Lakers that notched multiple titles in the 1980s. He cemented himself as one of the game's greatest scorers, and both past and present iterations of the game could use a player of his caliber. 8. Kobe Bryant. There is no doubt that Kobe Bryant has solidified himself as one of the game's most influential players. The Black Mamba dominated the court and led the way to 5 Lakers championships. He influenced the young generation of players in the league who were inspired to implement the same frame and all-around game as Kobe did. Bryant's 20 seasons in the NBA, combined with his elite offense, allowed him to rack up points. He debuted for the Lakers in 1996 and retired with them in 2016, ultimately putting up a total of 33,643 points. That was good enough for third all-time then, and is now fourth. There is little doubt that his play would stand up in all game eras. 7. Dennis Rodman. When discussing players that would thrive in any era, offense will always be the primary sticking point. But in all eras of the game, defense is just as important, and Dennis Rodman made himself known by putting his body on the line to prevent offense. Rodman was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner and 7-time All-Defense First-Team selection. He also averaged 13.1 rebounds per game in his lengthy career, one of the greatest of all time in that department, and his skill set would no doubt be useful in a basketball game regardless of the era it was played in. 6. Bill Russell. One of the NBA's earliest superstars was Bill Russell. Notching an unfathomable 11 championships between 1957 and 1969, all with the Boston Celtics, Russell truly paved the way for the superstar era in which the NBA would market and grow around their biggest names and talents. Not only was Russell influential in the NBA, but he also elevated college basketball to another level. He won 2 NCAA championships with the University of San Francisco, contributing to the rise of college basketball, which remains to this day. He also brought basketball to a worldwide stage by leading Team USA in the 1956 Summer Olympics, becoming a worldwide icon. 5. LeBron James. The most recognizable name in today's NBA is, without a doubt, LeBron James. He has stood the test of time, currently in the midst of his 22nd career season at age 39, and he has shown no signs of slowing down anytime soon. His 4 championships with 3 different teams, including his home state Cleveland Cavaliers, combined with numerous awards, speak for themselves. He recently became the game's all-time scorer and is now the only player in history with 40,000 points. Being the anchor and centerpiece of multiple super teams is not for the faint of heart, yet it is LeBron who can claim this achievement. His all-around style of play would make him one of the game's greats no matter the era. 4. Shaquille ONeal. Very few players can claim to have dominated the game to the extent that Shaquille ONeal did when he was in the prime of his career. I'm talking about a guy who was deliberately fouled night in and night out because he was so good. I'm talking about a guy who dropped 29.7 PPG and 13.6 RPG in the regular season, and then upped that to 38 PPG and 16.7 RPG in the finals. Shaq was an underrated passer, a great shot blocker, and a big-time performer. He was one of those rare players who could go off for 40 and 20 on any given night. Shaquille O'Neal was the definition of domination, and he would have been tearing down backboards in any era. 3. Kareem AbdulJabar. For 39 years, Kareem AbdulJabar was the NBA's all-time top scorer. His 38,387 points seemed unbeatable, leading the next man by almost 2,000 points. Known for his distinctive skyhook shot, the legend led the Milwaukee Bucks to their first title in 1971 and the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers to 5 more titles during their 1980s dynasty. The three-point shot was adopted during his 11th season in the league, and he never really adapted to it, shooting a career percentage in that department of just 5.3. The fact that Abdul-Jabbar put up the offense that he did without the three-point shot speaks volumes about his level of play and would certainly cement him as a dominant force in any era of the league. 2. Wilt Chamberlain. It is important to recognize that certain eras of the game lacked aspects that have become familiar in today's game, and vice versa. For a player to survive and thrive in any era of the NBA, they must be adequate in all aspects and fields of the game. Wilt Chamberlain is certainly one of those players. While the three-point shot did not exist in the NBA until the 1979-80 season, Wilt Chamberlain demonstrated that he did not need that aspect, as it did not exist, for his play to thrive. The 7'1" giant elevated the game to levels never seen before by featuring the level of athleticism never previously seen before in professional sports. While it is not likely he would be able to put up 100 points in a game in the current era of the NBA, as he reportedly did in 1962, his sheer athleticism and level of talent would no doubt carry over in any era of the game. He averaged 30.1 points and 22.9 rebounds per game, and remains the only player to average 50 points per game in a season, with no other player ever averaging more than 38. 1. Michael Jordan. When debating which player is the greatest of all time, certain arguments can be made depending on the perspective. What cannot be argued is that Michael Jordan will be in that conversation, and his sheer level of skill and talent made him transcendent in both his era and to this day. The Phenom took the sport by storm in the mid-1980s, and through the 1990s cemented his place as an all-time legend. He led the Chicago Bulls to a dynasty that included 2 three-peats, going 6-0 in the finals all-time, and ranks 5th in scoring all-time with 32,292 points. Jordan averaged 30.1 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game over his career. Additionally, while he was a good three-point shooter, it was not the primary aspect of his game. He shot a career 32.7% in that department. That would therefore make his game elevated in any era of the NBA.